Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen. I'm a conscious parenting coach. I work with queer, non-monogamous, and neurodivergent families to figure out how to thrive, not in spite of who you are, but because of it. And this week, for Week of Visibility for Non-Monogamy, we're talking about polyam parenting looks like. And today, I'm talking to Alan. And Alan, do you want to introduce yourself and your family and tell us a little bit about what your relationships are looking like right now?
I'm Alan, obviously. My kids, John and Jane are, they're elementary school age. Actually, my daughter Jane is about to go into middle school. Um, my wife Valerie, we've been married for 13. It'll be 14 years later this year. Um, and as far as our, you know, poly relationships, Valerie has a boyfriend named Albert. She's been with him for about 6 months. I've been, trying to find a steady partner, but I've been dating here and there. Um, and we've been, uh, exploring this as sort of a queering relationships kind of approach. I have, what has come out of it for me is I've developed a lot of really close, sort of strong friendships out of people that I've dated and haven't been steady partners with. Um, and it's been really interesting to sort of go through I don't love the term relationship anarchy, but the principles of it I do really like. And following how it's how I strive to live and behave. To a lot of people, the term anarchy implies freedom from consequences, or it's used to justify sort of inherently selfish or chaotic behavior. And I don't think that's helpful. But the actual principles behind it of like breaking down and deconstructing what it means to have a relationship with someone and what that relationship provides to you and the other person has been, that's been the approach that I've been sort of taking to it. I actually read and it reminded me, like learning about relationship anarchy recently reminded me that I had read an article about this like 20 some years ago. I'm like, and at the time I was kind of um, being neurodivergent and not knowing it, I was just sort of the weird kid and didn't have a whole lot of friends. And I was like, well, I don't have enough relationships in general to even apply any of these principles to. So, it's nice to reach this point in my life and in my development that I can practice some of these things. Um, but yeah, that's sort of where we're at. Um, we've been practicing polyamory. Polyamory, we tried it out about a year and a half ago. Started exploring it and have learned a lot about ourselves and our needs and wants since then.
Awesome, thank you. I'm curious about what the last year and a half has looked like for you, or maybe even however much time there was leading up to that when you were exploring and considering the idea of opening your relationship. Because you're, I think, the newest to polyamory of the people I'm talking to for this series, and so probably the freshest on what that experience has looked like to make that shift. And so I'm curious about what has that been like for you?
I mean, chaotic and stressful and broken a lot of the time. It was really hard. We sort of fell into it. It was My wife is bisexual, and I'd asked her periodically throughout our relationship, like, do you miss being with a woman? Is this something that you feel like you're missing out on? Not like in the sense that I wanted to have a threesome, but like, do you feel fulfilled sexually? And she always kind of dodged or said like, yeah, it'd be nice, but it's not worth the hassle of like trying to figure out like the relationship dynamics or what that would be like, or even meeting the right person and going through all of that, right? But I think, when I asked her, I think the previous November 2023, um, it sort of came up like, oh, well, actually, maybe it would be, we're really stable in our relationship. This seems like it could be fun to do. We, um, I know it's frowned upon. We did the unicorn hunting thing. We found someone who was willing to interested in having a threesome because that's what Valerie was most comfortable with how approaching this whole thing in the first place. And it turned out that one of the times we met this person, Robin, who was a person I'm still like really close with. Um, the um, yeah, we were going to go meet up with her on a particular day, and uh, my wife Valerie was sick and wasn't able to go, and it had been like a little while, and she told me like, "Why don't you just go?" I said, "Okay, cool. I'll go see Robin, and we'll have a date and I'll have a good time." And I come back and like we're both comfortable with it. It's fine and it's great. Um, and that was good for a very brief while, and then things got very complicated. Valerie didn't want to see Robin anymore, and uh, we tried seeing other people, and the people that we saw were like had a very sort of toxic approach to their own relationship and their marriage. We basically tried dating a couple together, and it brought a lot of additional complexity, first of all. But we didn't know how to vet people, and to understand. Like there were plenty of red flags, we just didn't see them because neither of us had dated in a very long time. And when we've dated people, we've generally been very trusting and not been looking out for those kinds of things. So, yeah, so that was really tough, and like that led to a long period of time where there was a lot of distrust between me and Valerie because of the nature of, the the male partner in the other marriage was, it basically said straight up like that he would not be happy unless I was out of the picture. Like that's not what we're here for. We're not trying to separate one another. We're not trying to have, jealous and combative feelings about one another. This is supposed to be together. So anyway, uh, without going into all of that whole drama any further than I already have, once we were finally separated from those people and that dynamic, we were able. It took a while, but we were able to finally like focus on one another and heal the traumas that we had developed in that period of time, and start to try again to see other people um, and see how that could work in a healthy way. Um, so I think that's sort of that was the opening to the journey. And after that sort of healing process, and in addition, like learning about, I dated someone very for a little bit, or ended up chatting, mostly texting a lot, and with a person, and like going on one physical date with a person who was like very committed to relationship anarchy. And I learned a lot about that. We both learned a lot about that, and about how to approach, um, you know, talking with people and having partners, and like our emotions around all of it, and what it can mean to be in love with someone who is, who you're not intimate with, or in love with, or being intimate with someone who you're not in love with, and how all that affects and doesn't necessarily compete with the marriage, right? Um, so, uh, I think I lost track of the thread. Did I get to your point? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you have talked about a lot of things that are really interesting because the experiences that you're describing are really common in the early days of exploring polyamory for people who have been monogamous, and especially people who are currently in a committed long-term relationship that has been monogamous. And I see both. I see, people experience that messiness, and messiness is part of growth. Sometimes we can't. So
Mm.
sometimes we can read a lot of things and learn a lot of things, and avoid some of the mess. And other times we just have to have the mess to learn because we're human. And so I see both people experience that mess or the hurt or the drama, and go back to monogamy, which is okay if that works for them. And what you're showing is that sometimes, regardless of whether or not you and Valerie went back to monogamy, there was clearly reconnection and communication and growth together that needed to happen in any case.
Yeah.
And that the invitation to that is what ultimately makes all the relationships, including that one that happen afterwards, better and healthier. And sometimes that fear of that, the mess or the drama, makes people afraid to take this step, especially if they have kids. And because kids are already a lot of work. It's hard enough to be a parent, never mind a parent who is also dealing with challenges in their own life. And so I'm curious about what has that been like to parent, um, to juggle the time and energy of parenting and co-parenting with Valerie while you are dealing with hard things happening in your relationship, and like what has that been like?
I mean, that only made, that first year that much worse. Honestly, like we were going through a lot of, developmental issues with John, our son, and he's got ADHD, and he's also, got sensory issues, and he's got, um, uh, it was a real struggle to get him to manage sort of his own anger and emotions and overwhelm. Um, and so when I was emotionally drained, and Valerie was emotionally drained, and John is being extremely demanding, we're all having a bad time. Everybody's snapping at each other, or we're um, geez. Um, we tried to have a vacation to Washington, D.C., and it was July, so it's hot in D.C., and it's you're literally in a swamp. Um, it's it was so exhausting. Nobody had a good time. Um, no matter how much we tried to like accommodate and give grace and so on. It was really tough, but I think we all learned a lot about each other in the process. Like you said, like, sometimes, your growth comes from, that's a really good, growth comes from that sort of chaos. If you do it right anyway. Uh, yeah. Um, but there were physical things, John had a tongue tie, the bit of your tongue that you know, attaches to the bottom of your mouth. His was too long. It was affecting, he basically was a 7-year-old with sleep apnea. And so he was a giant grump all the time. So getting that taken care of, uh, made a big change. And then he just sort of reached uh, a developmental level where he was able to, or had the capacity to, be a little more self-aware and be able to manage his feelings. And we, took a lot of practice and like talking with him at the right time and getting him in the right emotional state to work through it. But yeah, it was, but they weren't involved very much in sort of the polyamory side. It was just that there were these it was competing stressors, and how much time do we have? And that was definitely a concern of mine at some point. It was like, well, these relationships need to be over. We cannot pull this off right now. And it became a point of contention, or one of the many sort of points of contention in that difficult time.
I'm curious. I have two curiosities. The first one is what pulled you through that? Were there resources or supports or things that helped to lighten that or get you through it?
Oh, good Lord. Sheer will. Um, it was brutal. Like, I don't know that I had a whole lot of, you know, I didn't see a whole lot of hope in it. I didn't see a whole lot of light at the end of the
Mm.
tunnel. Um, I think I was just like, I don't know how this can get better, but I'm going to ride it out and see what gets better. And I think, reached a point where there was you know, like where I was having serious thoughts of like, is this going to lead to a divorce? Like, or is this going to be over? And that was one of the conversations that I had with Valerie, that kind of like, she was finally able to pull out of, sort of she was captured in sort of the toxic mindset of that one relationship. And I think when she saw that I was seriously like, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't think this is going to last or continue. Like, that sort of snapped something snapped for her, and she was like, okay, well, let's refocus. Um, but you know, no, we got to a really bad place. Got to a really bad place and left a lot of people sort of hurt in the wake of that. Um, that I still um, have really strong regrets about. So, um, but and it took a period of time of healing and work afterwards to come out of it. Um, but what sort of kept me going was like, I don't know, inertia and like I need to this is going to like the idea of how does this end and transform into a new stage in life, um, and that the intimidation of that process and getting through that, what would probably be a year process if not longer, um, it is so intimidating. And I'm like, I don't want to go down that path because it sounds like hell. This feels like hell, but it's slightly less awful. Like I don't have to figure out a different place to live, and I don't have to figure out everything else that goes along with it. So, um, yeah, bright spots weren't many, but the potential dark avenue that was the other way was just too foreboding. Um, and that's sort of what kept me going, I guess.
Yeah, I hear a lot of internal strength that and a lot of you didn't directly say this, but you have a lot of history with Valerie and that it wasn't easy to throw that away. So
Yeah,
the commitment to that um kept you there long enough to get to a place where it was easier. Um, and I'm
yeah,
just gonna drop a shameless plug here for 1 second that if you are in that place, this is what I do. This is what I do is help people sort that stuff out and make it, maybe a little bit easier or quicker to get through that hard place and to the point where things feel better. So to that end, I'm curious now that you're talking about all of this growth and learning and connection and sort of exploring again, but from a place of more strength and connection. Has that changed anything about parenting or about your relationships with your kids or how you approach all of those relationships?
yeah. So actually, at some, at first we weren't open with our kids about any of it, and when they sort of met some of our partners, it was under the guise of like these are friends, and any sort of intimate contact was not happening in front of the kids, right? Um, and at some point we um, Jane, you know, happened to see me kiss someone else and got really mad. And so we had to tell her, like, no, it's okay. Like, uh, Mama's on board. Mama has also kissed this person. And like, um, and Jane was like becoming more aware of her own non-traditional sexuality, and gender identity, and seeing that, oh, mama's bi. That's like how I feel like, and they sort of had a bonding, they bonded over that to some degree. But it has given um, it's been really great to help her since Jane is 11, so she's going into sixth grade and is really developing. Like she's finding her right friend groups, which is really wonderful. But and they're like a little queer group, and it's cool that they are like she's found people that she can be herself around. And I think we've talked with her about the ways that non-traditional relationships can go, and that she sort of dated a friend of hers for I don't know, a month or two, um, and then they they're still super pals. And we talked about her going into that relationship and coming out of that relationship, and like really it's okay. Like it's you see on TV and movies like, oh, when there's a breakup it's all over and it's chaos and like you can never talk to that person ever again. And that's such a catastrophic and like unhelpful way to look at things, you know um in and they're still super pals. And it's been really great and joyful to kind of share that with her and to see her, develop in that way. Our son John could not care less. We told him like at some point that yeah, Mama's dating somebody else, but we're still married and everything's good. And he's like, okay, cool. Can I go play the Nintendo again? Sure. He just has zero interest in like totally. If I he it's it's great. Like I think he sees it and understands it, but does not care. So um it's kind of awesome um to I don't know to be able to demonstrate that friendships, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about is um with my friend Robin. I told Jane that like, oh, Robin's going through a bad breakup and she's a really good friend of mine, and like she loves Valentine's Day. It's like her favorite thing. And me and Mama don't really celebrate Valentine's Day. We don't care. So, like, I'm going to go and celebrate Valentine's Day with Robin because she needs a friend. Um, and, and we hugged and we snuggled, and we are good friends and who can do that without it being, a romantic kind of thing or falling in that specific category of relationship. Um, and so and they're super sympathetic. Like Jane, like drew a picture for Robin, felt sad for her. Like, here, take this to her. What's her favorite animal and what's her favorite color? And so she drew something that was like had pink or lavender in it and had a raccoon in it. And it was just like a sweet little gift that I could bring to my friend. Um, I don't know. So it's been really wonderful in that way.
Yeah, and I want to highlight for anybody who's watching who heard all of the vulnerability of the hurt and the hardship that you shared, and to now notice the joy and the lightness and how rewarding it is to come out the other side of that kind of challenge stronger and more connected and you know with a new lens on the things that are important to you. And I hear how much that has given you a different way of connecting, especially with your older child, and understanding your older child, um, and has given them a different understanding of themselves and the world, and that it's just opening up um, more joyful, connected opportunities now that you're out of that crisis.
Yeah, yeah. It's been really wonderful, and it's been a lot of like, a lot of connecting with my own emotions and learning a lot about what myself and what I need and what I want. And yeah, instead of suppressing it. I'm very used to suppressing things for the longest time. And it's been nice to sort of be more in touch with it.
Yeah. Were you socialized as a man by any chance?
Yes, yes, I was. In the Midwest in particular. Like, yeah, uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. It's hard. It's hard to work your way out of that. But it's so much better. It's like it feels so much better being authentic to myself, and not trying to hide and bury my feelings.
So we've kind of touched on some of the things that were challenging about parenting as you were experiencing hard things. I'm curious if there's anything else that you have found to be a unique challenge that you think that monogamous parents or kid-free polyfolk don't have to face.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main challenges I have on are um at this point are just time-based, like all the simple logistical, like um, you know, uh, at one point, yeah, we were trying to think about, all right, well, how many dates a week can we pull off? Well, all right, Valerie's like, oh, maybe I'd like to see Albert twice a week. And I'm like, okay, that sounds nice, but um, okay, if you see somebody twice a week and I'm going to see somebody twice a week, there are only 7 days in the week. When are we home to do home stuff? When are we home to do stuff with our kids? And so we've had to work around that and be more careful and intentional about scheduling. I mean, the big joke in the poly community is like, when do I get added to your Google Calendar?
Hmm.
So, but like Valerie and I have always had like a joint Google Calendar that we kept stuff on, and it's been, help. It's been, yeah, it's been good to use that and to a to a new level. But having sort of a practical eye on, how much we can actually do in a given lifetime, in a given week. Um, yeah, so talk
Yeah.
about things like
More Tetris pieces to fit into the schedule Tetris.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm curious, you've already shared a lot of vulnerability about your journey, but if there is somebody who's watching this who is considering opening a relationship and embarking on this journey of being a polyamorous parent, is there something you'd want to offer them? Um, maybe to help them through whatever challenges they face, or to maybe help them avoid some of that hardship in the beginning.
Oh, good Lord. That's tough. I mean, it's um I don't know. I think some of the things um that can help you through is trying to remember what how good it can be when like presumably you're doing this when your relationship is in a good place. If you're doing this and your relationship is in a bad place, don't. Like, figure that out first.
Yes,
Um,
seconded.
but yeah, you need a lot of strength. You need a lot of um, yeah, a lot of willingness to push through and to like this is going to be hard for a little while. This might be hard for a long while. Um, and have touch points, positive things that you remember, things that make you want to stay with the primary partner that you have, um, and why you want to see that through and why you want to keep it. Um, yeah, I think it takes but it takes a lot of strength and it takes a lot of even the strongest um, relationships and marriages can see faults and can struggle and can crack and can break apart um, with something like this.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear often is opening a relationship highlights everything that's already there. So if there are cracks, they will be magnified. And if there is strength, it can also be multiplied.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm curious after all of this, is this the right choice for your family? Would you do it again?
good Lord. I mean, I would.
Just the easy questions.
Yeah. Would I do it again? I think I would. I would hopefully be able to do it a lot better. I mean, with some amount of hindsight or advanced, but uh, but I think ultimately where I came out is a place of such a deeper understanding of myself, of my wife, of my nature in terms of relationships. Um, she has a better understanding of me and what's going on in my head when I, meet someone, when and when I am attracted to someone, what that can look like and what that can feel like. Um, and it's and yeah, it's given me a whole better appreciation for my kids' relationships and helping them to learn through and develop healthy approaches and not have the same kind of suppressed and difficult approaches to relationships that I had growing up. Um, there has been so many benefits to breaking the constraints of monogamy, the constraints of and like lots of other things that have tied into it, and patriarchy and religious subtext to a lot of different relationship structures. Um, it's been incredibly beneficial, and it's absolutely and it's given me something of a community. We've gotten involved in the local, polyamory group and involved with Pride, the local Pride group. And it's not something I've ever really had is a community of people that I could share things with emotionally and connect in that kind of way. Not that we're all sleeping with each other because we're not. Um, Yeah. It's I don't know. It's a certain type of brain space, and it's a certain type of approach to life and relationships and other people that I think is very liberating. And liberating is the word that I keep coming back to. Um, it it really is like a whole new world.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing such vulnerability. And yeah, I hope that this is a beacon of hope for someone who is dealing with the early challenges and wondering whether or not they can get through it and whether or not it's worth it. Because yeah, this your story is a gift to the community. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course, I hope it helps somebody.